We are all experiencing an unprecedented time in our lives right now. The level of uncertainty, anxiety, and fear can be overpowering as we learn to navigate in our new world, all doing our part, whether it be social distancing, staying home, and abiding by federal guidelines. There are so many on the front lines who are battling a war against an invisible enemy. Being on the front lines can place a person's physical and mental health in jeopardy. A team of professionals has come together and created a program called Resilient Minds on the Front Lines to bring tools, knowledge, skills, and instruction to assist in a time of need. This team is dedicated to helping those who help others. On today's webcast, international speaker, retired NFL running back, and ESPN analyst Merril Hoge talks with Dr. Kate Tumelty Felice about what resiliency means to him and how to stay with it when life gets tough. Your hosts for today's webcasts are Master Resiliency Instructor Michael Pellegrino and Dr. Kate Tumelty Felice, Professor of Education and Psychology and Coordinator of Education Programs.
Our team at Resilient Minds on the Front Lines is dedicated to bringing you 15 minutes of hope in a world turned upside down. The topics in our webcast are all meant to help those on the front lines help themselves and others. Today, retired NFL running back Merril Hoge joins Dr. Kate to talk about resiliency in his life and how a few words from his idol, Walter Payton, changed him forever. Merril uses a find-a-way philosophy in all things in life, which is also title of his latest book. We are all so grateful for Merril for joining us on Resilient Minds on the Front Lines. Be safe, be healthy, be resilient.
Thank you so much, Merril, for coming to talk to us today. I'm really excited to talk to you, my friend who has made such a difference and is going to share with us some of your perspective about resiliency. So just to get started, what does resiliency mean to you in your life?
Well, I guess, when I hear that word, it's when things get toughest that you're consistent and you stay with it. And it reminds me actually of a lesson that I learned a long time ago by a player that I idolized, and it was Walter Payton. And that concept of being resilient, doing things, not just during times where it's working for you or things are great and it's comfortable and everybody's doing it, but when it gets tough and when it gets hard, and when nobody wants to go do it. So what I'm getting at is he did an interview. He did this. It was actually a videotape he put out called "Winning in Life," and he was going to talk about a whole host of things, but from charity work to his family to how he trained. And I was just a kid, and I only cared about how he trained. I only wanted to be a football player. I wanted to play in the National Football League, so I thought he could give me something that might help me. So I fast forward to all the stuff that is not interesting to me. At 15, family, charity, that's not interesting to me. But how he trained was. And there was an interview process that the interviewer's first question, they asked him, what makes you better than everybody else? Now, before I share what he said, because he said one of the most profound things I've ever heard a human being say, I just don't assume that people know who Walter Payton was. Walter Payton at that time of that interview, was the all-time leading rusher. Pound for pound, I believe he's the greatest player to ever play in the National Football League. And this was always said about Walter Payton. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, and he's not the fastest. He's just the best. So that's confusing as a kid because you're like, well, wait a minute. I thought the biggest, strongest, and fastest were always the best. Well, he actually really cleared it up. And when I say profound, what he said next changed my life. It became a part of my life. It's still part of my life today. It speaks to what you just asked me. What is resiliency? He looked at her and he said, because I want it more than they do. Every day of the week. He said, you see in the off season on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, when I go train that dirt hill at 6 o'clock in the morning and nobody wants to join me, I want it more than they do. He said, then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, when not a fan is in the stands, cameras aren't rolling, I want it more than they do. And yes, 1 o'clock on Sunday, I want it more than they do. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, when I started thinking about that, now I'm a kid, I start thinking, I can do that. That is a pure mindset. That is nothing that you need unique. It isn't like you have to be given a special gift. It is really a mindset that develops a pattern and a habit in your life and an approach. And when you say every day, that means the days that are tough, when it's not good, when it is tough, when it is rough, when all the circumstances are going against you, you still find ways to plow through that. And I learned that as a kid from him. And I applied it when I practiced, when I trained, when I played. And where it became most pertinent is when things were tough. I mean, at the end of every sport, it's the end of the game where it becomes the toughest, especially when it's a close game. And it's who can persevere through those moments, not the first quarter, not the second quarter, not when you're up by 35. It's when it's tough. And it's been invaluable in my life. I developed it at a young age, and it's easier to apply now at age 55 than it was at age 15. But it was developed and learned by being inspired by somebody else. So it's not something that you're like, I don't know if I can do that. Yeah, you can, because that choice, you got a choice. You either go, well, I can't do that. That's the exact same energy you need to go, oh, I can. And it really starts with your mind. Do you control your mind, or does your mind control you? The more we control our mind, the more we use things like that, you can be resilient in a lot of tough situations in life.
Absolutely. And you've made that your philosophy. And I know that is based on your history and all the things you've overcome in your life to find a way. So if you had to give people a tool for hope, and you've given us some great information here, what would you say would be something that's a tool we could use to help us overcome adversity, whether a frontline worker or really for anybody, based on you've overcome so much between, head trauma and cancer and open heart surgery, and you've dedicated your life to helping people, kids who are grieving. What tools would be the most helpful or have helped you with adversity?
Well, something I try to share with everybody, and I even do, I've practiced this my whole life. It doesn't matter what your circumstance is, okay? And it might be a circumstance you didn't create. Like, none of us created the circumstance that we're in right now, okay? So oftentimes, if you didn't create the circumstance, you want to blame the circumstance. You get caught up in the circumstance. And you waste your energy on a circumstance that you can't change. You can't do anything about, or that you can't change. But how you go about handling that circumstance is vital. So the thing that I have learned the most, that if it's a circumstance, no matter what it is, that you want to change, fix, or address, you have to do your part. You have a responsibility to do your part. What that part is, only you can know what that part is to that circumstance, but you must take action and do something about that circumstance, changing it, fixing it, or achieving it. Now, after you've done your part, you have to be able to stand in the mirror. You're the judge, jury in this whole case. And have you done everything possible within those circumstances to change it, to overcome it, or to accomplish it? If you can say yes with that, then you should have utter peace, no matter where you end up or what ends up from it. And then that's where, I just believe in faith, that once I've done my part, and then I relinquish everything into having faith that things are going to work out. But if I've not done my part, and there's been times where, and I think probably everybody's probably fallen in this category, where you could do more. There's more to do, but you're like, boy, I'd like this to be done now, or I'd like it to be over now, or I'd like to have accomplished this now. But a majority of my life, when I have done my part, and then I have trusted that the rest that needs to be done, if there's more that needs to be done, I have faith in that. I have always had peace with that. I have utter peace that as long as I've done my part, and that means I haven't sit and wasted my energy on the circumstances and how difficult they are and how unfair they are. I'm like, what can I do within those circumstances? What is it that I can do? I find a way within those circumstances to work through it. I exhaust all those avenues. Once I exhaust those, I'm telling you, one of two things usually happens. I accomplish it or overcome it, or I discover something on the journey that I never would have before, and that was better for me than where I was going. And I ultimately have peace with that. So doing your part, taking action is a vital component to addressing and changing your circumstances.
Absolutely. You are, and that's how you find a way, and that's how you build resiliency. And I'm so grateful for your time, Merril, and grateful to be your friend. You've changed my life for sure. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today in this conversation with my friend Merril Hoge. Merril's story of overcoming obstacles in his life and using his own resiliency to bounce back in times of adversity make me think of a quote by preeminent theorist in positive psychology, Martin Seligman. He said, "It is no surprise that optimistic athletes, managers, and teams do better. What's interesting is where they do better. It's from coming back from defeat and acting in the clutch." And this makes me think of a couple takeaways from today. Research shows that optimism is a skill that can help build our ability to flourish, our resiliency. Optimism is a key component in well-being. Increased levels of optimism improve our immunity, improve our job performance and our overall performance, and improve our pro-social behavior, our ability to serve. And that's another key takeaway. A key concept of resiliency is finding meaning and purpose. Engaging in finding meaning, engaging with others and finding meaning in what we do helps us to flourish. Meaning and purpose can be derived from serving something bigger than oneself. So if we think about that, and we think about resiliency as being the ability to rise above adversity in unprecedented times, then I think about both of those things. Serving something bigger than oneself during unprecedented challenges. And that makes me think of the nurses that I'm talking to who are so exhausted at the end of their shift that they can barely stand. And of the police officers who are afraid to come home from work and hug their families because they don't know what they're bringing with them. Or people who are working in stores and dealing with customers who are frustrated and angry and confused. Or those of us at home that have family members who are dealing with depression and anxiety. These are unprecedented times and there is a challenge. And what I'd like to think about today is that our ability to serve in the clutch, in these times, in these unprecedented challenges, to help others and to serve something bigger than oneself. A takeaway there is that not only are you doing that, but just by being there, just by showing up, but just by giving yourself that grace and credit, you are making a huge difference. And when I think of those people, the one thing I'd want them to take away from a talk like this today and from our efforts is give yourself that gift to know that right now optimism might just be being able to wake up, being able to put one foot in front of the next, and being able to show up wherever it is you need to be. If you can give that to yourself, that credit, that grace to know that that is a huge accomplishment, then you're helping yourself. And then you're better able to help others. Serving something bigger than oneself in the clutch is exactly what you're doing. And I'm so grateful. At Resilient Minds on the Front Lines, we want you to help yourself, help others. And we are so grateful for your ability to do that. Give yourself the grace to know that you are doing something amazing. Thank you. Be safe, be healthy, be resilient.
During the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, your mental health is vital. Please see the resources listed here as well as on our website at onthefrontlines.us. You are not alone.